Let's talk about mood charting, why we do it and how we do it. In this brief presentation, I'm going to touch on what are some of the benefits of mood charting, what are some of the options, tools that can be used for mood charting, and then I'm going to focus in on one particular tool and talk about how to mood chart. There are many reasons for mood charting, but we're going to focus on identifying triggers, helping you get better response in terms of the right medications, and then learning the skills to master your own moods. Knowledge is power, and mood charting will allow you to figure out how subtle changes in your environment or psychological triggers lead to mood episodes, and therefore how to change these triggers and how to deal with them differently. Every one of us is a bit different, and to prevent mood episodes, you need the detailed information that comes from mood charting. Just to illustrate, it's common for us to find out in the course of mood charting that there are certain types of events that are particularly likely to trigger a mood episode, and certain precursors to mood episodes that can serve as warning signs, but also that can lead to interventions and changes that prevent these episodes. Over the years, we've acquired a reputation as being experts in treating people with mood disorders with medications, but really, a great deal of our ability to do that is dependent on mood charting. In our experience, working with a number of patients, some of them referred for consultation, most often a key problem is that it isn't possible from people's memories or from the documentation to really figure out what the medications are doing. Which medications have which effects on mood. And mood charting is the key to making that distinction. Part of the reason that this is difficult is that there are both short and long-term effects from medications. So for instance, a medication may in the short run improve mood and in the long run lead to more frequent cycles. And that kind of information is not going to be available unless there is a mood chart. Also, medications interact with each other, and figuring out what the right combination is requires a fair amount of information, much more than just I'm doing well or I'm not doing well. And finally, medications interact with mood. So if you're in a certain mood state, it may be the case that there's a need to adjust your medications based on that mood state. So for instance, if you're in a depression, it may be that there's an add-on medication that will help. And again, that kind of information is really only possible if you can see the course of mood and see how medications affect it. And ultimately, our goal in all of this is to have you learn the skills and to have you learn how your mood responds to different events and to interventions. So again, knowledge is power. Knowing how your mood shift and what the triggers are is making a big step towards no longer being controlled by them. There are a lot of options for charting mood, and we're just going to focus on 3 of them, but there could be many, many more. One is a Google document that we've developed. It's a very simple way of keeping track of information and allows you to share it with other people. The second is an application that we like from Optimism Online. And then the third is a paper chart. And again, there are many different paper charts, although they all tend to have some common features. Let's talk about the Google document. Basically, this is a Google spreadsheet that also has a form and therefore some instructions for how to fill it out. Some of its advantages: it's free, pretty easily accessible from many different locations and platforms. It's easily shared with clinicians or family members, and it's somewhat customizable. Disadvantages: it's a Google document, so you have to trust Google. The design isn't great. Graphs are not that easy to put together, and it has a tricky mobile use. Our preferred paid application is from Optimism Online. It has a nice design. It's also pretty easily accessible, especially from the Mac platform and PC and iPhone, not from the Android. It has triggers and a stressors list, which is useful to try to keep track of some of that information, and it includes some built-in graphs that are quite attractive and useful. There is a cost. It's about $40 a year, and it's not really easy to share with clinicians. In fact, the only way to do it is to share your login information, and the mobile use is only with the iPhone, as I mentioned, not with the Droid. The paper form is, of course, free. It's also faster to fill out a paper form. You don't have to log into a computer, and it's pretty easily accessible, although if you misplace it, it suddenly becomes less accessible. It is much less likely to be shared. In fact, about half of the folks who use this don't bring it in to any given session, so for whatever reason, remembering to bring it in to visit doesn't always happen. It's also easily lost, and there's fewer instructions, so the cues that help you figure it out are not that plentiful on the paper form because there's just a single sheet. In terms of talking about how to chart, the focus will be on the online spreadsheet Google document, although what we have to say probably applies to both of the other alternatives as well. But there are three things that we focus on: sleep, mood, and we have 4 dimensions that we keep track of, and then notes about treatments, events, memory cues. In terms of sleep, we pay attention to really 2 primary dimensions. The first is, what time of day do you go to sleep? And that we are interested in knowing, are you going to bed in the middle of the night, early morning, early evening, so it's sort of a general sense of what time you're sleeping. And then, how long did you sleep? So we'll ask you to put down what time you went to bed, what time you got out of bed, and then between those 2 times, how long did you sleep? Because you might have woken up in the middle of the night or had trouble getting to sleep, or gotten up early and then gone back to bed. So those are the dimensions that we track in terms of sleep. Mood is probably the trickiest aspect of mood charting, because we all have a different language for talking about mood. And so this language probably isn't going to fit perfectly with your experience. But we divide it into 4 dimensions. The first one is outlook, and that refers to optimism versus doubt or skepticism about how things are and how they will turn out. And then there's a dimension called energy, which can also be thought of as mental speed or decisiveness. And then sensitivity: how much are you affected by others and their opinions? And then anxiety, which is probably the easiest one. When we look at outlook, this is a dimension that refers to a continuum of feelings from incredible, extreme, unrealistic optimism to incredible, extreme, unrealistic pessimism or doubt. And this is one of 2 dimensions that is rated on a +5 to -5 scale. And one key thing is that the middle range is the typical or perhaps normal range. So on this scale, you don't want to be rating yourself as +5 on Outlook, because that means you think you're God. So for a typical range 1, 0 to -1. And then +2 on this would be noticeable optimism, meaning that somebody who knows you well would say, that's particularly optimistic. Or -2 would be noticeable pessimism. And then above +2, +3, +4, +5 is a level of optimism that makes others worry. Gosh, it's possible. How can he do all of that? Or similarly, a level of pessimism or doubt that makes others worry. The other scale that is also a +5 to -5 scale is looking at energy, mental speed, or decisiveness. So it's mental energy more than physical energy. So one can be +2 on mental energy and be tired physically. And that would happen if you were thinking very quickly, making decisions, and yet at the same time physically feeling tired. And that's not typical, but it is possible. And so we ask that you focus more on mental speed or decisiveness and less on the physical. So think about how quick are your thoughts moving, how decisive are you, and try not to factor in worries. So if the thoughts that you have that are moving quickly are worry thoughts, that we ask you to try to pull out of the factor and perhaps focus more on decisiveness in that case. So the typical range again is going to be in the middle between +1 and -1. Again, +2 will be noticeably quick and decisive, and -2 is noticeably slow, avoiding decisions, obsessing about them, but not causing concern. +3 is causing concern to others, hard to keep up with you, you seem to be racing or making impulsive decisions, or perhaps even impulsive bad decisions. And -3, -4, and -5, gosh, you don't even seem to be able to do the stuff that you need to do. You seem unusually slow, unusually hard to choose what to do, causing concern to those who know you. Anxiety is probably the easiest to mention. The only thing tricky about it is that 0 to 1 refers to an abnormally or unusually low level of anxiety that's usually associated with carelessness, not thinking enough about potential hazards or adverse consequences. So an example would be, let's say you drive up in front of a police station, there's a red zone there, and you pull in and park there, walk away not worrying about it. That would be kind of an extreme low level of anxiety. 1 to 2 refers to everyday anxiety, everyday worries. 3 or above, moderately high. 4, high. And 5, extremely high. And we include panic and fear as well as everyday worry. Sensitivity is another dimension that's on a 0 to 5 scale, and again, 0 to 1 refers to unusually low sensitivity to what others think or feel. So not caring, heedless perhaps. Maybe irritating people because you are ignoring how they feel. 1 to 2 would be an everyday level of sensitivity where you're aware of how people are feeling, you're changing your behavior to adapt to it, but not excessively sensitive. And then above that, you might be either irritable, that's one dimension of sensitivity, is a kind of negative, irritable response to others, or particularly sensitive to criticism in the sense of feeling really bad if someone says anything negative. 3 would be moderately high, 4 high, and 5 a kind of extreme sensitivity. For more information, go to our website, www.gatewaypsychiatric.com, and search for mood charting or mood chart.